Today we'll be talking about the one and only Baby Yoda, also known as the Child, and why we think the child may age much faster than you think. Much faster than Yoda did back in the day. And yes, just like Baby Groot turned into a rebellious teenager at one point, you may see the same out of the Child in upcoming seasons of The Mandalorian. I'm going to explain to you why this could be. And before we dive into this theory of why Baby Yoda may age rapidly, don't forget to smash that like button if you enjoyed this video, and also give us a subscribe and ring that bell if you're new here. So in reality, we know very little about Yoda's species. We've only seen 3 of them in canon so far: Yoda, Yaddle, and now the Child. And while Yoda and Yaddle have only been seen as adults, we know that they are both several hundred years old at the time of their on-screen appearances. Yoda, for instance, was 900 years old when he became one with the Force. And even in the upcoming High Republic era, Yoda is said to be in his late 600s. So the question is, will the Child age much faster than a normal member of Yoda's species? And what would cause this in the first place? Well, first of all, in order for the Child to physically and chronically be 50 years old, as stated in The Mandalorian, he would have had to have been born 41 years before the Battle of Yavin, the same year that Anakin Skywalker, the Chosen One, was born. The Jedi were at the height of their power and were always on the lookout for Force-sensitive children to train in the light side of the Force. Especially with Yoda being the Grand Master and Yaddle having a high seat on the High Council, it would be safe to assume that the two of them would have eagerly been anticipating another Force-sensitive being to emerge from their species. However, this never occurred because the Child wasn't born in 41 BBY, if our theory proves true. And this is where the interesting part comes in. We know from Episode 2 Attack of the Clones that the clones on Kamino can be genetically engineered to have growth acceleration, meaning that the clone troopers who were deployed on the front lines were around the age of 20 physically, even though chronologically they were born about 10 years ago. The same growth acceleration could have been applied to the Child. That is, if the Child is indeed a clone in the first place. We see Dr. Pershing in Chapter 1 of The Mandalorian sporting a gray suit with the Kaminoan seal on his upper right sleeve, which only gives more evidence to the theory that the Child was not born naturally. We also know from canon and Legends material that cloning or creating Force-sensitive beings is possible, and that Darth Sidious himself was the one to figure it out. We know from Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, that Sidious created Snoke, a powerful Force-sensitive being, as well as multiple clones of his own body that he could inhabit through an unnatural dark side power known as essence transfer. Also, in the now Legends video game The Force Unleashed 2, we also know that Starkiller was cloned by Darth Vader and had Force powers as well. Now, Sidious knew that Yoda was one of the most powerful Force sensitives in the galaxy, so it only makes sense for him to want to clone Yoda and create an army of dark side Force-wielding Yodas. We saw in Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, that when Yoda fell in the Senate chamber, he left behind his cloak. The cloak was bound to have some form of Yoda DNA on it, which would lead to Sidious being able to duplicate and clone Yoda. Unfortunately, with the fall of the Galactic Empire, his efforts were cut short, and all that remained of the project, according to our theory, was a small green baby, the Child. So, if the Empire did in fact create the Child, that would be the reason why the Imperial Warlord, known as the Client, wanted it eliminated. Perhaps the Child was still needing to be eliminated by the command of Operation Cinder, or perhaps the Client had grown tired of the Empire's meddling and wanted to restore the natural order of things, as he said, and this creation wasn't natural. We know that the Client wanted the Child destroyed, with the evidence being how many fobs he sent out, IG-11 being told to eliminate the target and the fact that Dr. Pershing said that he himself was the only reason the child was still alive. Now, Moff Gideon also wanted the child kept safe and brought to him alive, and perhaps this is the reason, along with the client's incompetence, that the Moff blasted him as soon as he touched down on Navarro. Moff Gideon said, "He is more valuable to me than you will ever know." Maybe the Moff was the head of the project while the Empire was still standing and wants to continue the work, or maybe the Moff intends to transfer some of its Force essence to himself, or maybe Moff Gideon just wants to raise it as a great warrior to fight for the dark side. Another indication to the child's unnatural origin is how naturally gifted he is with the Force. As a mere infant, he has already displayed the powers of Force Stasis, Force Choke, Force Shield, and most impressively, Force Healing. If we look back on the examples of Force wielders who have come from unnatural origins, such as cloning or creation, we see that they display unusually high amounts of Force potential. Snoke, who was a creation of Darth Sidious, was a master of the dark side. The clone of Starkiller was arguably more powerful than his original form, and even Rey, who was born from a failed Palpatine clone, as revealed in the novel, came from an unnatural origin and was again incredibly powerful in the Force. And lastly, the Chosen One himself, Anakin Skywalker, who was born because of Force manipulation, arguably had the highest Force potential of any known being in the galaxy. And just as these Force users progressed more rapidly than their peers, so does the child. And it is possible that this amount of Force power potential may have also granted the child the ability to age more rapidly than others of his same species. If any of these theories are true, it could mean that we could see a fully grown Baby Yoda in The Mandalorian in the coming seasons, or perhaps in a new upcoming series or movie. It would be a surprise to be sure, but a welcome one to see a Force-sensitive, lightsaber-wielding, Beskar-wearing little green Mandalorian Yoda bounty hunter fighting side by side with his adopted dad, Din Djarin. Who knows if anything like this will happen, but it's always fun to let your mind wander and think about all of the possibilities, and let us know in the comments below if you think any of these are possible. And if you like the video, force push that like button, and if you're new to the channel and want to see more updates on The Mandalorian or anything else related to the galaxy far, far away, make sure to subscribe and hit that bell icon to be notified of upcoming future videos. I hope you liked the video, and as always, may the Force be with you, always.